Quick shout out to the sponsor of this video, 2Game. 2Game are an official digital retailer where you can buy legit game keys, support the publisher, and get games cheaper on great deals. If you'd like to pay them a visit, the link will be in both the comment section and in the description. First things first, if you're watching this video on the day that it actually released, which is 9/11, I'm going to be streaming on Twitch exactly an hour from now. So this video dropped at 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be streaming on Twitch at 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. We're going to be doing NBA 2K19 and Spider-Man, so the link is in the comment section and in the description if you want to participate in that. And the next thing, which is the topic of the video, I hope this video becomes obsolete very quickly, and I hope that it means nothing past the day that I post it. Because I have hopes, even if they're going to be dashed, I have hopes of an updated roster, a patch for the roster. But if not, the 2000s teams have taken a dramatic step back from last year. By now, we're pretty used to players missing off of rosters because it's understandable that with historic teams and trying to get licensing for every player, there's going to be some people missing. But the issue that we're having right now with 2K19 is that there were already a lot of players missing from some of these teams. You had teams like the Warriors that only had 7 people to begin with. You had teams like the 05 Spurs, where Tim Duncan had to play the whole game because there was never a backup center. So that problem has gotten worse this year, and specifically for the 2000s teams. I went through every historic team roster, and basically once you get to the 90s and you go below, the same people that were already missing are missing for the most part. I didn't really see a lot of glaring omissions. And just in case there's any confusion about what it is I'm actually doing in this video, I'm only talking about players that were in NBA 2K18 and are no longer in 19. I'm not going to go through every roster and list everybody that's missing because that's a much larger list. And I'm also going to try to give you some tips about what you can do to get around it if you still want to use these teams, although some of them I'm going to assume you probably don't want to use anymore. For the 14 Pacers, they became useless quick and in a hurry. They're now missing CJ Watson, Roy Hibbert, and Luis Scola. This was already a difficult team to use because they were so defensively focused and they only had one guy that could really create and score off the dribble. You had David West, but nobody knew how to use post moves last year, so I suppose he's a bit more useful in this game. However, the lack of Roy Hibbert, look, I understand the guy had a short, quote-unquote star career, but he was important to this Pacers team. And CJ Watson coming off the bench was very important for shooting. And the way that the Pacers are really harmed with these omissions is that they were already, with those players, they were 9 deep. So you take away what they've taken away right now, they have 7 real players on the roster, I believe I counted. I don't recall if Chris Copeland was in 2K18 or not, but if he was, he's not in this one either. So yeah, the Pacers right now, you don't have your starting center and you have 2 players on the bench, so good luck if you want to use them. The 13 Heat, oh goodness, my heart hurts right now. You know what, I know winning with the 13 Heat didn't make you good at the game, it didn't prove anything, but they were so much fun to play with, and last year you guys heard a lot about that 20-game win streak I went on with them. They were just a fun team to dominate with when you just wanted to get online and kick back and just have some fun. Okay, so they are now missing Chris Bosh, Mike Miller, Norris Cole, James Jones, and Chris Anderson. That's 5 players on a team that didn't really have an amazing bench. They had amazing players that for their role, right? Because when you had LeBron and Wade out there, all you needed was shooters, so they could play their role. Even if you never played James Jones, I'm willing to bet that you played Norris Cole and Mike Miller, and I know for a fact I use Mike Miller. So not only are they gone, but you're missing your starting power forward as well, or your starting center, wherever you were starting him at. Bosh was very, very vital to that team. He provided the floor spacing. He was a big reason that I was never losing with that team, because pick and pop with him and LeBron, that was money, and even if you weren't shooting with him, it gave you a wide open paint. But don't fret, they did manage to... They managed to still keep Joel Anthony, so I guess you can put him in place of Bosh. But yeah, other than that, I don't ever recommend that you use the 13 Heat. Like, there's just nothing here for you anymore. The 12 Knicks are not that hurt. They're missing Steve Novak, and if you were watching the stream probably about a month ago now, he did hit that game-tying 3 for me, and you do know he was pretty slept on in 2K18 anyway, so I don't suspect that people are really going to miss Steve Novak that much. However, he was an important shooter on this team and one other team that's going to be a little bit later on this list. The 11 Bulls are missing CJ Watson, as were the 2014 Pacers, and they're missing John Lucas. And I think Kurt Thomas was in 2K18 as well, but even if he wasn't, he's not in this one either. Now this really hurts the 11 Bulls because they were already missing 2 guards, right? One of the biggest problems I had playing with the 11 Bulls in NBA 2K18 was that Derrick Rose there was no rest for him because your backcourt was so thin. You didn't have Keith Bogans and you didn't have Ronnie Brewer. Those were 2 backcourt players with him. So whenever Derrick Rose or Korver subbed out, they didn't have a legit backcourt coming in. CJ Watson and Lucas, they were small. And that was already a problem, but at least CJ Watson could shoot. He was a legitimate threat behind the 3-point line, so you had to guard him. Without them, man, do not ever expect to see me use the 11 Bulls because I was having a hard enough time with how thin that team was already. They had Carlos Boozer, for fuck's sake, they had Carlos Boozer playing small forward sometimes, and yeah, now they are missing these perimeter players, these backcourt players, so that rotation, I can't help you. Don't use the 11 Bulls. The 08 Rockets are missing Luis Scola and Steve Novak. This does hurt them a lot, believe it or not. Luis Scola is not the most talented player by any stretch of imagination, but he could hit a mid-range and he could spread the floor a little bit. Steve Novak, again, that was another shooter, and the thing is, this is why I always, to begin with, my advice for them was to always have T-Mac or Yao Ming on the floor, right? No matter what they sub in, always have one of them on the floor because the bench is not that good for that team to begin with, and Steve Novak was one of the people that I was going to for, go-to 3-point shots, and now he's gone too, so your bench is going to be thinned out on the 08 Rockets. The 08 Nuggets, I'm not sure if Lennox Kleiser was in the game, but he's not in the game this time. And the reason it confused me is because this guy I found on Twitter, he actually found a way, and I meant to mention this at the beginning, but he found a way to see players that are on the disc. So on PC, you can access some of these players' files. You can't do it on the PS4 or Xbox, but on PC, you can access the players' files and see who's on the game, but just not in any rosters. Lennox Kleiser is one of them, and I believe he was in the game last year, but he's not super important to the 08 Nuggets, right? On there, you have everybody that you need: Nene, J.R. Smith, Carmelo Anthony. So yeah, you're pretty much fine without Kleiser. With or without Kleiser, he would just be kind of extra. I just wanted to note that he was missing. As if the 2008 Hornets needed any more problems, they no longer have Chris Anderson. Now this might not sound significant because you're like, they have their 3 most important guys. They have Chris Paul, Tyson Chandler, and David West. The problem with this is I think I can remember the Hornets only had 8 real players, or not 8, but I believe 7 real players last year. So a lot of the times you had generics coming in on the first sub. As soon as they sub in the first quarter, generics were coming in, but Chris Anderson was still a legit backup big man. Yeah, you don't have Chris Anderson anymore, and this was already a thin team. Another team that was already thin that did not need to lose anybody was the 07 Warriors. And it's funny because this We Believe Warriors team, when 2K announced them for NBA 2K18, they did them as a bonus. And up until they updated them, I was going to call them the biggest scam in 2K18 because they announced them and then they only had like 5 or 6 real guys on the team. But they ended up updating it and they got some of them back. I can't remember who they were. Anyways, point being, in 2K19, now you don't have Monte Ellis or Matt Barnes. This team was already missing Andre Biandris, Mikael Pietrus. They were missing some important players to begin with. Now one of your most dynamic scorers on that roster and somebody else to stretch the floor are not there, so the 07 Warriors are completely useless as it stands right now. And by the way, Mikael Pietrus was one of the players that was accessible on the disc. Like the guy who I saw on Twitter, he actually did see his art on the disc. However, again, you can't access him until 2K actually gets his licensing. So there goes the 07 Warriors until they fix that. The 06 Grizzlies, this is another team that was not that good to start with. Now they're missing one of their most important shooters in Mike Miller, and then they're missing Dante Jones, who I guess would be useful if you wanted to injure somebody. This Grizzlies team was very slept on, and I played with them a couple of times last year, and I played with them on stream. Thing about this team is that they rely very heavily on their shooters. Because Pau Gasol is the dominant force there, and to spread the floor, you gotta have him down there, and you gotta have shooters everywhere else. So yeah, having Mike Miller off their roster, again, this was a team that nobody ever bothered to use anyways, but now it's a team that not even I'm gonna use. The 05 Spurs, they're only missing one guy, but let me tell you why this is so significant. Bino Udre was the backup point guard for the Spurs. Not a super talent, not a great player, but he was just another body, and that team needed bodies because, again, I mentioned it earlier in this video, 05 Spurs only had 7 real players last year. I believe they're down to 6 now. You're gonna have Parker, Ginobili, Bowen, Ori, Duncan, and I'm not even sure who's actually coming off the bench. I have to go back and look at the clip that I recorded. So yeah, on top of not being able to give Tim Duncan rest, it looks like you are not going to be resting Tony Parker either, because actually it just came to me, Brent Barry is the only guy that you have on the bench. So yeah, the 05 Spurs might be really completely useless now unless you're just so good with that starting lineup. And last but not least, this is one that I'm not 100% sure on, but I think that the 02 Kings added Hedo Turkoglu last year because he wasn't in the game to begin with, I don't think, but I'm pretty sure they added him and now he's gone again. But again, this is one of those teams that has enough players to still be useful. You still got Chris Webber, Mike Bibby, very important, Doug Christie, Stojakovic, so you've got the most important players, and maybe Hedo will be back because his licensing, obviously that's an issue, but his actual likeness is on the disc. I did see a picture of him on Twitter, so he's on the disc. Maybe 2K will be able to pull him up later in the year. So that's all for the 2000s teams, and in our experience, what normally happens is some of these players come back just randomly. I can't remember which year it was, I believe it was 2K17, but Steve Nash was missing from the 05 Suns, and then they randomly pulled him back up later in the year. I'm not 100% sure, I dug up what I could, I didn't find any tweets from Mike Wang, Ronnie2K, or the 2K official page. I did talk to Brian Mazik, who's a sports gaming journalist, and he has a review that 2K like retweeted out earlier, so he's somewhat connected, and he told me that he does not know if there's going to be a patch. He says that he actually doubts that they're going to be added now. He says that they could come later, but it's all going to be a matter of licensing, and that these are not, this isn't just a tech issue, or it's not just that they omitted them on purpose, it's obviously licensing. Now, with that being put out into the universe, this is still really sad because most of the problems with 2K19 so far are issues like this. The gameplay itself is really fun, the park looks like it's going to be fun this year, I hear a lot of good things about my team, I'm liking my career, and if Dom2K says he likes my career, it might be good because I never like my career. But some of these 02 teams that were already thin just lost some really important players. And if you were watching me on Twitch last night, you know that I'm planning a My League this year that's supposed to be a great experience for all of us. And I have to go back and look now or maybe wait for them to add some players because a lot of these teams are in my league. I plan to have them in there and they're missing a lot of guys and it wouldn't feel that authentic to be playing, like half of a roster, right? So sadly, all we can do is wait and see. But hopefully 2Game, the official sponsor of this video, can help cheer you up. 2Game are an official digital retailer where you can buy legit game keys, support the publisher, and get games cheaper on great deals. If you'd like to pay them a visit, the link will be in both the comment section and in the description. Alright, so that is all I have for this video. Hit the like button, comment, and sub if you enjoyed. Remember to come see me on Twitch in an hour. I should be on for a good, maybe 3 or 4 hours, so we had a lot of fun last night, and I would enjoy you if you came through. And if you're watching this video a bit later or on a different day, you can still follow my Twitch because I am setting a schedule, and I'm going to be on there pretty frequently with a lot of 2K19 content and other games. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys on the next one.